What are we gonna do when we get back?
What are we gonna do when we get back?
I take a shower and hit the rack.
Take a shower and hit the rack.
Welcome to Charlie Mike. If you're a combat veteran with an entrepreneurial bug and want to know what highly successful combat veteranpreneurs are doing to transform their sacrifice and experience to create their visual reality, then this is dedicated to your inspiring and fulfilling future. And now your host, Dwayne Paro.
No way, gotta run, feet, lots of fun.
Invest in Yourself ebook is my free gift to you for listening to the show and becoming part of the CO Nation. To receive your free gift, please go to landmarklifecoaching.com. Thank you for joining us on this episode. There are so many veterans with core strengths to become successful entrepreneurs and continue to make a huge positive impact on our country. Here we highlight the amazing successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Combat veterans for the purpose of this show are soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen who have served in the United States in wars, campaigns, and in theater on foreign soil or hostile waters. Our guest today is Justin Constantine. Justin is a former Marine and attorney and is now an inspirational speaker and leadership consultant. He recently published his first book, My Battlefield, Your Office: Leadership Lessons from the Front Lines, which focuses on teaching mid-level managers how to lead people. Justin is also a presidential leadership scholar, a member of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, and a senior advisor at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, focused on veteran employment. All right, Justin, welcome to the show, and thank you for being a guest.
Absolutely, Dwayne. Thanks for having me. This is an exciting topic, so I'm glad to be here.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm very excited to have you tell our loyal listeners all about your journey from a combat veteran to a successful entrepreneur. Just for our loyal listeners, I've had the distinct honor of being able to be involved in some of the things that Justin has done, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. So this is a highlight for me to be able to have Justin on the show and be able to, let other aspiring combat veterans who have the entrepreneurial bug to step out and know they too can be successful. So before we get into the entrepreneurial experience, Justin, can you please give our audience an overview of your military experience?
Yeah, sure, no problem. I joined the Marine Corps a little bit later in life. I was actually in law school when I joined. I had tried to join earlier and it didn't work out, but I joined actually my second year of law school, so I went to Officer Candidate School in Quantico during the summer, and then went back, and so I was a commissioned officer, went back and finished law school and took the bar exam, and then came into the Marine Corps right out of law school. So I went to the Marine Corps, the basic school that all officers go to, and then the Naval Justice School for about 10 weeks. And then my first duty station was Okinawa, Japan. I was a defense counsel there. And then I was a criminal prosecutor for about 4 years at Camp Pendleton, California. So that was from roughly 98 to 2004. I didn't deploy when I was on active duty, but I joined the reserves in 2005. And originally I was with a unit for all lawyers, teaching the law of war and Geneva Convention to Marine units getting ready to deploy. But then in 2006, I transferred over to a civil affairs unit in Washington, D.C. that was going to deploy in the fall of 2006. And so I was a civil affairs team leader of a small team, and we were attached to a much larger Marine infantry battalion out of Camp Lejeune once we got to Iraq. And we were stationed at Camp Habaniya, which is in between Fallujah and Ramadi over there in Al Anbar province. And so that was in really, I guess we got there early September of 2006. I was shot while I was there and had a significant injury. So I came back very early and took quite a while to recover. But I went back to work after about 8 months, and then still stayed in the reserves while I went through many surgeries. I've had about 24 reconstructive surgeries, and stayed in the reserves until 3 years ago, until 2013. I ultimately medically retired as a lieutenant colonel, but I still, as a reservist, I worked in D.C. and also with Marine Forces South, which is part of Southcom down in Miami. So I was happy to keep serving after I was injured until it really didn't make much sense anymore. But yeah, all that being said, I still do a lot with veterans, and we can get into that a little bit later in the show.
Great. Yeah, it's just absolutely phenomenal story. I mean, to be as injured as you were and to come back to duty 8 months later that's just phenomenal. That shows true dedication and and a true Marine. I'm sure all Marines are like, yeah, that's our guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, especially with the number of surgeries, that's so admirable. So I'm sure from that, obviously you've written a book which outlines a lot of leadership lessons that you learned through that process and the rest of your impressive military career. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about how you got into the entrepreneurial aspect? Because you had mentioned, you came back and you obviously stayed in for a period of time. You got out and did some other stuff, but then decided, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. Can you kind of take us down that road?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess my entrepreneurial spirit predates my time in the Marine Corps. I mean, growing up, I had, paper route for years. I had a lawn mowing business, snow shoveling business, and different things like that. I always worked a lot in college and then law school. I had a number of part-time jobs. But the first real entrepreneurial thing as an adult, it was after I was injured and I was working after I was injured, I still kept working with the federal government. So at that time I was with the Department of Justice. And when I was shot in the head. So my head for a long time, at least a year, was really swollen, really disfigured. It was embarrassing and trying to go out. Like, people would stare, clearly wondering what happened. I looked bad. And so my wife and I went down to the beach and we went to a t-shirt shop there, and I decided to have a t-shirt made that just said in big letters across the front, Iraq and back. Just to kind of answer unasked questions about what the heck happened to me. And but what happened was it actually caused a lot of people to feel comfortable coming up to me and maybe asking me what happened, or just saying thank you for your service, or telling me about a family member who was in the military or whatever. And so I thought, well, this is pretty cool. I do like this reaction a lot better than the other one. And there are hundreds of thousands at that time, now millions of us who have deployed, and no one knows who you are, except if you have a very visible injury like mine. But someone can walk by you and not know that you had served. And I thought, if we could make some gear that people could wear that's not like over the top, like Kill 'Em All and stuff like that people might want to wear, it would kind of get the conversation going out there. And so we made my wife and I, this is an online apparel business, part-time on the side because I was working full-time, but all sorts of designs, all under the title of Iraq and Back, and it was shirts and hats and backpacks and water bottles and stuff like that. And for the service member, but also for their family members, we had onesies for the little kids, and they all look really cool, and it was a fun time, but it was hard to sell some of the stuff. And I, of course, being totally biased, and this is a major lesson every entrepreneur should benefit from my experience, is you have to do some market research. You have to get honest people to tell you if they think your product will do well. It can't just be your gut feeling, because I made a significant mistake, and that was the Marine Corps Marathon was coming up, and several people who really had no idea what they were talking about said, "Oh, well, you should get a booth at the when you have the marathon. Before the marathon, all the runners have to go into this area to get their running bibs. And so when they do that, there's a bunch of tables there where they sell all sorts of running gear, and a bunch of vendors have all sorts of stuff. And a couple of different people said, you should get a booth, sell all your stuff. I mean, everyone's going to want to buy it. And I thought, okay, yeah, that's cool. So I spent $20,000 really beefing up my inventory for this thing, and without really thinking it through. And the reality was, most of the people coming through there weren't Marines and weren't in the military. They just are regular people who wanted to run the Marine Corps Marathon, and because they live in the area. And so we spent a lot of money on this stuff. Hardly sold any. I mean, the first day the sales were terrible, and we came back thinking, wouldn't it be great if someone stole all our gear so we could file an insurance claim and count it all? Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So we really, and the second day wasn't much better. And so that was a tough lesson. We actually were able to sell a lot of it ultimately. We sold all the gear, and then after that we made a little profit, and so then I wrapped up the business and moved on. But that was a painful lesson because it wasn't looking too good there for a while. So anyway, that was my first entree into being an entrepreneur, directly related to my combat experience. Now, of course, I'm full time with speaking and coaching and doing some other things as well, which we can talk about. But that's how it got started. And importantly, I was doing that on the side when I had regular income coming in, which is an important thing to consider as well.
Yeah, no, those are some great points. Going back to when the first part of that conversation, I think all entrepreneurs can resonate with the fact, you really had this entrepreneurial bug inside of you when you look back to when you were young growing up. I absolutely can resonate with that. I was probably one of few in my generation that I played sports, but it wasn't my priority. My priority was to have my own little. At the time where I lived, I cut wood and sold it to people who lived on a tourist lake that we lived full time on.
Yeah.
And so, I was always making money on the weekends. And in the summer, I'd go live with my grandparents, and my grandfather was so well connected. He'd be like, who do you want to work for? And I'd basically say who, and all right. And next thing I know, I got a gig, right? And so, so I always wanted to do that myself. And we get going down the road, and I think part of it is we go in the military, and it's so mission and purpose driven. We get out and we assume that we just got to get a job. We just got to pay the bills, and we don't think about what is our real life purpose. And I think a lot of veterans get to the point where they realize they miss having that purpose-driven life that the military can give you. And so, that's great. And this is great advice on the T-shirt, business, because people will, they will take advice of people who actually they think a lot of and they confide in, but then they don't realize that market analysis may be slightly biased.
Right.
And so because they want the best for you. Why wouldn't they? And
right. Exactly.
But then like you're standing there holding the 20K tag going, okay,
right.
Okay, I need somebody to buy these. So that
we actually, in the military, you learn to think creatively and think outside the box, especially when you're in theater, and it's hard to make things happen. So you have to come up with creative solutions. So one of the things we did with this is we called it T-shirts for troops. We had a separate sales category where people, they liked the shirts, but they hadn't served, and so they felt weird about wearing them. But we said, well, you can buy them, and we won't send them to you. We'll send them to the wounded warriors in the military hospitals. And a lot of people enjoyed that, and they did that. And they bought a lot, and we boxed them up and sent them like hundreds at a time down to Brooke Army Medical Center down in San Antonio. It was great to see that people around the country wanted to do something for our troops, and this is a way they could do it. And when we talked to our friends down at Brooke Army Medical Center who worked there, they said when those boxes came in, the men and women there knew what they were, and they were already lining up because they wanted to hear. So that was great to hear, and it worked out really well. But it took some creative thought process to make that happen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's all part of being an entrepreneur. You always got to be looking for that next angle, that next way to market that puts you a little bit different than the other guys. Because I'm sure there was, tons of vendors out there with T-shirts with great sayings and
Oh yeah.
and of course the patriotic of us are like, oh yeah, I got to have one of those, and so
Right.
there's a lot of competition for that. So that's great. That's a great point. Based on your combat military experience, I'm in the process of writing a book. Well, I've written a book to publish in this calendar year, and it really focuses on veterans' use of their core strengths that they develop in the military. So, but even more so from a combat military experience, are there any core strengths that you developed in that time that you were in the environments like that you said, as you started becoming an entrepreneur, wow, this actually is pretty handy?
I think ultimately I did. I don't think I had a cognitive thought process along the way, thinking, "Oh, this will help me later." But really, when you are overseas, I mean, the military's tight anyway, but I think it gets a lot tighter when you're overseas, especially in a combat situation. Even if you're not outside the wire, but because of the gravity of the situation around you, and because there aren't, you can't go anywhere, and you just hang out with a lot of the same guys, and you get pretty tight, and you realize you can lean on each other, and there's comfort in that. And as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to rely on other people a lot too. I mean, I work from home. We have a second bedroom in our apartment here in Manhattan. That's my office, but I only have a couple employees, but I have a network of men and women who I rely on very much so. Not with a combat mission, but with the same mentality where we can all help each other. We can all do better together, and we all understand the challenges. And I'm specifically talking about other veteran entrepreneurs who I either work with through nonprofit stuff or with our businesses. And so I do think it's very helpful to purposely build a network of other entrepreneurs and specifically veteran entrepreneurs, because we are more inclined to help each other, just like we are when we're in a combat environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Networking is huge. As I went through my career, growing once I got out of the military and went through my civilian career, worked all the way up to executive position. I don't know that I ever put a conscious effort into really growing my personal network, and I think that says a lot between the difference between being an entrepreneur and just being part of a larger organization. While it's important as being part of the larger organization, it doesn't make or break you. I still excelled. I still got to where I got to, but as an entrepreneur, I can't imagine not having the network of people I have. I rely on them daily, and so yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and I mean, frankly, if a veteran calls me and asks for help, I'm going to do what I can for him or her. Like earlier today, I was on a call for half an hour with someone, a combat veteran who is thinking about starting a seeking business. And I mean, it was only a half-hour talk, but that's a half hour out of my business day when, of course, I had to, really work on my business every day. And I promised to send him some resources and some other stuff. I don't mind doing that because I ask other guys for help all the time. And I believe that what comes around goes around. And, we take care of our own in the military. And I hope that your listeners have that same attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Helping others is important. It's funny, the things that you do for others, it's kind of second nature to what you do, and so it doesn't even seem like sometimes
Right.
like it's that big of a thing, but the
Right.
person on the other end is like, "Oh my God, this is
Yeah.
yeah, this is amazing." So I've been on both ends of that, and
Right.
it's sometimes it's hard to ask others too, because God, they're as busy as I am, if not busier, and I'm going to ask them to take time out of their day. But yeah, it is critical and it's very helpful. So all right, so listeners, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Landmark Life Coaching's vision is to be the nation's premier coaching partner for inspiring and empowering those in transition. They partner with courageous groundbreakers and transitioning veterans to create fulfilling and empowering futures that they desire. They have partnered with various entrepreneurs and transitioning veterans to leverage their core strengths and implement the framework for the future they always dreamed of. Could you or anyone you know benefit from a success partner to bring clarity to your future or their future? If so, please check out landmarklifecoaching.com for more information and charliemikepodcast.com for the Charlie Mike Podcast, showcasing the successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Okay, we're back with Justin Constantine. We're talking about the amazing entrepreneurial path that he's been on since he got out of the Marine Corps. And at this time, I'd like to go into what I call our In the Zone segment. We all love when we hit that sweet spot or we get that feeling that we are doing what we are meant to do or where we are meant to be. So let me ask you, Justin, what was that point where you knew being an entrepreneur was meant for you?
I guess that's a great question because if you're an entrepreneur and you're not happy with what you're doing, that's a tough spot to be in. I would imagine. I haven't. That's not my situation, but as an entrepreneur, you are, you eat what you kill, kind of, and you're in charge of everything. And I think as a wounded warrior, I appreciate being in control of my own schedule and being in control of who I work with and what I work on, because I was shot in the head. I couldn't control that. I couldn't control a lot of aspects of my life after that. So I make sure I'm working on stuff that's important to me. I guess I knew I was in the groove when I started. I'm an inspirational seeker and a motivational seeker. And when I started seeking engagements, not because I reached out to people, but because they had heard about me and called me. And at that point, I realized, okay, this is viable. This is something I can do. And especially once I started charging more money, I wasn't sure how that would pan out, and it worked out no problem. So once, I guess, to sum that up in a few words, it would be to hit some milestones of success I had laid out. That's when I knew I was in the groove. At the same time, really enjoying what I was doing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think all entrepreneurs strive for building that kind of self-feeding referral machine, right? And so, and it's true. It's okay, what I'm doing is not only where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing, but it's also adding enough value to that community that they are reaching out and saying, hey, we need more, or we need some in some cases.
Sure.
So yeah, that is amazing. The feeling that you get when you start getting those calls, it's because as an entrepreneur, you spend those first months, sometimes a year or more, just trying to get the wheels on the bus. And
There's a lot of groundwork to lay, because it doesn't matter what industry you're in as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of big companies doing what you're trying to do. There's many small businesses. There's even other veteran-owned businesses. So it requires a lot of hard work. So when you go and, with me yesterday, I gave a speech out with 3M, and afterwards on standing ovation, lots of people coming up with great feedback and wanting to take pictures and stuff like that. That's a good feeling, because I know I'm bringing value. I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So whatever your industry is, when you get that experience, that you're doing something right.
Absolutely. So, one thing that I'm always curious on when I'm looking to build my business and add more value to the veterans that I serve and things like that, I'm always looking for tips and on tools and resources that other entrepreneurs, particularly in the combat veteran space, or even just veterans in general space, those in transition, what are other entrepreneurs using as tools and resources that they have found really useful as they've built their business? Do you have a couple that you would share?
I guess I do have a couple. For one thing, if you can get some formal education on this stuff, that is a huge asset. And as a disabled veteran, I went through the program at Syracuse, the Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Disabled Veterans, or EBV program, which is free. It's at Syracuse. So it's also at 8 other universities around the country. And it's about a 10-day course, preceded by, I don't know, maybe 4 months of online work. So very robust. And they've had, I don't know, and I think it started in 2007, and they've had thousands of vets go through the program now. So you learn the nuts and bolts of starting a business. And that's the one I went to, but I know that there are other programs out there through different universities. I also went to a program last year, about a 1-month program at Stanford University. It's called Stanford Ignites. And it was for veteran-owned businesses or for vets who were thinking about starting a business through the Stanford Business School. So it's similar to the program at Syracuse. And I was just invited to come speak at, again, a similar program at Dartmouth, which is in a couple months. And so there are a lot of opportunities out there. You get instruction from college professors, business experts, other entrepreneurs who have made it big, and your whole cohort you get to meet and get to know. So that's the first tip. And typically they're free. Not always, but typically they're free or very low cost. So I would recommend doing that. Have you had experience with that, Dwayne?
No, actually, I haven't attended any, but I hear about them all the time. So
Yeah.
I think I need to get off the stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I've been spending more and more time listening to podcasts like this one to hear what other people have gone through. And when you do that, you find that's like the tip of the iceberg for finding more resources. Not only on the podcast pages are there the show notes that have links to go to there, discuss. So you just listen to the podcast and you get to hear what these folks have gone through, exactly what you're doing here. So I think podcasts are a good tip also that a lot of people don't know about or don't spend time on.
Yeah, I agree. I was reading the statistics on the number that are out there, and there really aren't that many when you consider all the things that you could do a podcast on. So, because they really, niche down. And
Right.
so none of them are trying to be, everything to everybody, because nobody would listen to them. So so you get some really good resources out of those. And that's kind of how I got the bug to do this, is I was like, this is really good. I still think there's room in the veteran community for veterans to be able to get their stories out to others in multiple platforms. Another one that I've run across recently, and it seems to be coming up a lot, and I actually have a call this week with one of their executive directors, is Bunker Labs.
Oh, yeah. I'm friends with Todd Connor, who started that. And yeah, that's something worth looking into. I mean, I've talked to him a number of times about what they do. I don't have any personal experience with it, but the way he describes it, he's in Chicago. I know they're around the country, but I think the one in Virginia is in Alexandria. Yeah, and it's an incubator, and so that's another good. And there are a couple other incubators also, but that's the biggest one out there, I think.
Yeah, they really seem to be making quite an impact on the veteran entrepreneurial community, and they're attracting some real talent there to lecture and provide the needed resources. So those are really, really useful for the veterans.
And one last one that maybe all the listeners haven't thought about, and I'm just getting started on this, is online courses for free through Coursera. And so those aren't focused on veteran stuff, but there's a million different courses on anything, any topic out there. There's courses, and it's just Coursera.com, I believe. But they have a lot on entrepreneurship and leadership and marketing and building your brand and social media. So all these other things, which are not exactly what you do in your business, the product or value you make, but everything else that's related to it. They have all these free lectures, and they're through universities. So that's something that I'm getting ready to explore, and something your listeners might be interested in too.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think there's a few resources out there like that. The internet, being the resources that are free out there is always a great place to start, because everybody wants to sell you something, And so you'll have plenty of time to spend your money on different resources. But I think, starting with those and sifting through and getting the basic knowledge on a lot of areas at no cost is the way to go. So, yeah, great advice, Justin.
Sure.
This has been an amazing conversation. It's an honor to have you on the show. Like I told our loyal listeners when I started, I've had the distinct honor of being able to hear you speak at an event. And I know exactly what you're doing for the veteran community, and it's huge. And so as we end this episode, I want to give you the opportunity to provide our loyal listeners with your contact information, however you'd like them to get in contact with you, and if they want more information.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dwayne. The easiest way to connect with me is probably you go to my website, which is justinconstantine.com. And if you have a specific question, there's a contact me link there. But also, I have a good presence on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. But I like LinkedIn the best. And if you do connect with me there at Justin Constantine, in the notes section, where just say, hey, I heard you on the show. And that way I'll automatically accept. But any of those ways works fine. My email is justin@justinconstantine.com. So if I can help you or provide some guidance, please send me a message.
All right. Well, great. Thank you again for being on the show, and most importantly, thank you for your service to our country.
No, thank you, Joanne. I appreciate you bringing me on, and I'm glad to see you got the podcast going. I'm glad to be part of it.
Remember, loyal listeners, we are the home of the free because of the brave.
Thank you for tuning in to Charlie Mike Podcast with Dwayne Paro. Our objective is to bring successful veteranpreneurs to help inspire and provide insight into what helped them become successful, with the hopes you can take away various strategies you can implement in your entrepreneurial journey. Visit us on iTunes, leave us a rating and review, and let us know what you thought of the show. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hoorah!